Thank you so much, Aggie. I really appreciate those very kind words, and I do want to thank Wayne as well as Daniel for the invitation, and to Joe Sanita, thank you for being the patron saint for, it was stated earlier today, for clean money and transparency as well as accountability in our political electoral system. My name is Kevin DeLeon, for those who don't know me, and I am a proud supporter of SB 52. Yeah. Just very quickly, I want to put this into context as it relates to the state of California. In the past 20 years, we've had roughly about 5 measures, revenue enhancement measures, that have passed at the ballot box. Since 1992 to 2011, we've had only 5, and that sort of kind of runs contrary to the perception that we have, which is California, a blue state, which it is by far and large. We have 58 counties, 10 of them are considered blue counties, 48 are considered red counties, but by far and large in the aggregate, it's a blue state. It's a largely democratic state. It's a very left-leaning state, relatively speaking, to the rest of the entire nation. It has been hindered greatly by this liberal tax and spend state perception and stereotype. Again, let me underscore and emphasize and highlight, in the past 20 years, only 5 revenue enhancement measures have passed at the ballot box. Believe it or not, back in 1992, then Republican Governor Pete Wilson, a public safety measure that was a sales tax. We had a proposition called Proposition 63 by a guy you all know. You saw him on a television show called All in the Family, a guy named Meathead, or known as Meathead. Rob Reiner, Proposition 63. And that was a measure that created these first 5 commissions for young children throughout the state of California. Then you had a young man who was in his last year of the California State Assembly, and he passed a measure, a very important measure. He's now our pro tem, he's our leader in the Senate. They all said that he was crazy. He passed a millionaire's tax, because it was a millionaire's tax for the mentally ill in the state of California. Proposition 63. So you have Proposition 63, which is very important. So those are the only 3 measures that have passed at the ballot box since 1992 to 2011. The last year we had Proposition 30, Governor Jerry Brown, and a proposition that I had the honor and pleasure to co-chair, Proposition 39, with regards to energy efficiency, clean energy, in terms of closing a very egregious corporate tax loophole. Those are the only 5 measures. So that means there's an 84% failure rate at the ballot box to pass revenue enhancements. That means when there was an attempt to pass measures, tobacco tax, alcohol tax, soda pop tax, oil extraction tax, a tax on the highest earners in the state of California, whether you live in Beverly Hills or Malibu, or you live in Marin County or Laguna Beach. All of these measures failed at the ballot box. And does a lack of transparency and accountability have something to do with it? We all know it does. It does quite tremendously. I want you to put that in your head. Only 5 measures have passed since 1992. That's an 84, or prior to 2012, I should say, that's an 84% failure rate. Now, our passage rate has improved somewhat, relatively speaking, to 74% because of Prop 30 and because of Prop 39, the measure that I co-chaired. But it sends a very clear message that elections can be bought. It sends a very clear message that things can be obscured, it can be very murky, it can be very confusing for the everyday electorate. Whether you're Latino, whether you're African American, whether you're Armenian, whether you're Asian Pacific Islander, whether you're white, whether you're progressive, whether you're a moderate, whether you're conservative Republican, it doesn't make a difference. I think everyone deserves transparency and accountability at the ballot box if you want a fair game. So whatever ideology that you subscribe to, whether it's single fee payer, whether those folks oppose single fee payer, you want something that's transparent so everyone can view and everyone can make their own conclusions, as opposed to being manipulated, as opposed to, as I think Aggie had stated earlier, what was it? Women for democracy, or senior citizens for transparency, or I've heard some really doozies, We are Latinos for a better government, you know, and there was a front, there was a shell. You know, it's almost like these offshore, if you will, Cayman Island accounts. You have all these layers that are hidden, layer upon layer upon layer upon layer, and you have to scratch the surface, and you have to dig in very deep to find out, follow the money trail. And where does it lead? Exactly to the jackpot. And it leads to those interests, very strong political interests, who want to thwart democracy as we know today. My fellow colleagues, Reggie Jones-Sawyer as well as Steve Bradford, you know, mentioned and highlighted the very unfortunate, ill-advised, and quite frankly, ignorant Supreme Court decision on the 5-4 ruling with regards to Citizens United. And that sabotages and subverts and undermines democracy as we know it today. And what we saw with Proposition 32 last year in the electoral campaign 2012 in November, when we had multi-billionaires from out of state and some folks from in-state who, in effect, in so many words, sent their money elsewhere, had it laundered to end up in another type of account so they can send the money back into California to purchase these ads, to confuse folks is beyond the pale. Who would ever fathom the very thought that the United States Supreme Court, the US Supreme Court, would actually sanction and create the conditions for this type of manipulation? Because what it is, it's money laundering, in so many words. You send the money to one account, from one account it touches another account, it gets laundered and goes to another account. Ultimately to its end goal objective, which is to defeat or to move forward a ballot initiative that's quite frankly not good for the citizens of the state of California. We've dealt with this time and time again when we dealt with 2/3. Now, I want to be very respectful to folks who may have a persuasion that's a little more conservative or more to the right, because I'm always very respectful of all individuals and their ideologies, what their core beliefs are, even though I may not agree. But we dealt with a 2/3 lack of majority in the California state legislature when you had a small, tiny minority. The ruling of the tyrannical rule of a small minority of groups who thwarted every single thing imaginable. And what we were able to accomplish with 2/3 on both the Assembly as well as the Senate is quite historical. And it's one step, but it's one small step. We have to get transparency, we have to get accountability, we have to show the electorate that elections are not bought and sold and paid for in California. We have to give democracy back to the people. You know, and I'm not going to make the assumption that everyone thinks the way I do. I like clean energy. And I think a lot of folks like clean energy, you know. I like clean energy, I like clean air, and I like clean water. And guess what? I also like clean money too, because it's the right thing to do. So, I thank you, Aggie, very much, and I thank each and every one of you, the activists and advocates who are the grassroots movement, who motivate us, because you do. Because oftentimes, as Reggie and Steve can tell you, you know, it can get quite chaotic in Sacramento. You can be hit from this side to that side, and sometimes you feel like you're one of those balls on those pinball machines, you know? You're just going back and forth all over the place. It's the activists who inspire us. It's the activists who motivate us. It's the activists who bring clarity and bring sunshine, you know? And we've got to disinfect this process. And with your help, collectively, we can do this together. And I don't think this is a partisan issue. I don't think this is a partisan issue. I think we can have Republicans, we can have Democrats, progressives, moderates, all come together. It's not a progressive issue, it's not a Latino issue, it's not an African American issue, it's not a white issue, it's not an API issue. It's clean money, everyone is helped by clean money. Everyone is given a real opportunity to succeed and have an opportunity to move forward and espouse their values, espouse their arguments, defend their arguments openly and publicly, and let the electorate, let Americans decide who's right and who's wrong. With that, thank you very much and keep fighting.